Everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Samsung Galaxy S21 Plus and see how this particular phone holds up in 2025. Now, the first thing to really remember is that with the Samsung Galaxy S21 Plus, this phone is very interesting. I thought it was a really good phone when it first came out, like it was actually killer, but nowadays it's a little bit different, but it still is like a really interesting phone to say the least. So we'll take a look at this phone throughout this whole entire video. But if you want to pick up this phone or some other phones that I would actually recommend buying this year, links will be down in the description below. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the exact same time. Now, starting off with the outside of the Samsung Galaxy S21 Plus. This particular phone came out originally in 2021. So that was actually a pretty interesting thing to kind of keep in mind, because within this particular device, this is without a doubt still a very interesting looking phone because it still looks really, really good. This particular device is as you probably would have guessed it, it's a large 6.7-inch dynamic AMOLED display. So that right there, that's a really nice thing to kind of keep in mind here because it is actually a really nice type of looking device. It's 120 Hertz. It still gives you 1300 nits of brightness, which isn't the lowest, but it's also not like the, most impressive device of all time. But it still is like a really good looking device without a doubt, right? I think this thing still looks pretty good for the most part. And it doesn't get the brightest, but still it's not too bad. You're getting your fingerprint sensor in the display too, which is nice. On the bottom, you're getting your USB Type-C port, which again is pretty cool. You're also still maintaining things like a frosted glass back, which is really awesome. You're getting your triple camera setup on the backside. You're getting wireless charging. You're getting reverse wireless charging. You were getting a lot of stuff built in inside of this particular phone that still make it feel and perform like a really, really good device. And that's something that I actually like a lot. If you're going to use one of these types of devices, I actually do enjoy using this type of panel and this type of phone in general because it still feels and looks like such an expensive phone for the most part. Like it still feels like $1,000 phone, which is actually pretty crazy. However, there are a few things to keep in mind with the outside of this phone compared to some of the newest flagships. Number one, the build quality and everything is still pretty similar to what you'd expect in a lot of newer phones, but the only thing you're going to have to keep in mind here is that with this particular device, the panel, the screen, just doesn't get as bright compared to some of the competition. So compared to a lot of the phones nowadays, like a Samsung Galaxy S25 or S24 or S23, those phones' panels definitely do get brighter than this one. So if you are wanting a phone that's going to be giving you a little bit of a better display, well, this thing is not a terrible display, but keep in mind that those other phones are going to be giving you significantly better panels and screens when it comes down to it. Again, definitely not the biggest deal in the world, but just one of those things you might experience there. But beyond that, it's not really that big of a deal. On top of that, another big thing to keep in mind here too is that with the Samsung Galaxy S21 Plus, this particular phone is also going to be going through and essentially giving you a phone price that's like $210 right now. That is a very cheap price to pay for this type of phone. Like that is not that expensive of a device. That is a very, very good price device. And this in and of itself is seriously something that's super, super impressive because you don't have to spend an insane amount of money on this type of device. Like it really doesn't cost that much. And I think that again in and of itself is another really cool thing to kind of think about here. So when I'm looking at this device right now, I think Samsung for the most part did a really good job with it. I think they killed it, and I still think in a lot of ways it still holds up very, very well when it comes down to it. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there for the most part. Now on top of that, when it comes down to the cameras, this particular phone on the backside, like I mentioned before, is giving you a triple camera setup. So it's giving you a 12 megapixel wide, 64 megapixel telephoto, and then a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera. And on the front side, it's giving you a 10 megapixel wide angle lens. So definitely when it comes down to this type of camera, it's giving you a very good type of layout. You're getting 8K capability on the back, and you're getting 4K at 60 on the front side. So this is without a doubt a really, really impressive and nice thing to basically have inside of this type of device. Like being able to go through and get this type of capability in and of itself, that is a super nice thing to have. And I think this camera still holds up very well against a lot of the competition. Like if you're going to go through and get some of these other devices, like it is actually very nice to be able to go through and get a device like this one or like a Galaxy S21 even, that's going to be giving you this type of camera because it's still very good. The only thing I can think about how this camera doesn't hold up well against some of the competition maybe is like some of the camera quality, maybe some small camera features that aren't here. And definitely if you're comparing this thing against the S25 Plus, Clearly the S25 Plus is going to be better, but I'm still a fan of this type of phone and I still think it holds up very well against a lot of the competition. So from that side too, that kind of covers it up there. But maybe one of the downsides of the S21 Plus is always the software. Because this phone is basically done getting software updates, we're once again in this type of situation where this type of device just isn't really going to be getting those many software updates. So this phone is already kind of done. I think it's ending off now or ended off. It's not getting Android 16 as far as I know. So because of that, we're once again in this type of situation where if you wanted to, you could go ahead and buy this phone. The build quality still holds up. The camera still holds up. All these things still hold up. It just so happens that basically the software longevity is just not holding up that well. So if you're okay with getting a phone that's basically done getting software updates, then you might be okay with this, but I personally would not recommend that. I would completely go against that. And I think there are way better devices to go ahead and pick up rather than this thing from a software longevity standpoint. So from that side, without a doubt, that is a really important thing to kind of keep in mind within this particular device. So from that side too, that kind of covers it up there for the most part. Now, when it comes down to the battery, this phone is still giving you a 4800 mAh battery inside of it, which once again, that is a really big size battery to have. You're basically able to go through and get this big size battery, you're able to use it. And I think this again, in and of itself, is another really big advantage of being able to go through and buy this type of phone because there's still a lot of capability within this type of device when it comes down to it. And even when it comes down to the performance, like this phone is still giving you the Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 chipset inside with 8 gigabytes of RAM. That amount of RAM, although it's less than the S25s, it's in tune with some of the S24 models. And this phone's performance with that chipset was probably better than the successor of this thing, which was the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chipset. So the 888 is still very competitive. And if you're playing a lot of games, if you're using a lot of applications, you're still going to feel like you're getting a pretty fast phone from this particular device when it comes down to it. And I think that is in and of itself a pretty nice thing to kind of think about when you're going to go through and get this type of phone. I'm actually a big fan of that. And I do think if you are going to go through and get a device, that is without a doubt a really cool thing going on here. So in my personal opinion, right, if I'm going to go through and if I'm going to recommend this phone to people, I would definitely say that with a Samsung Galaxy S21 Plus, this type of device for the most part, it still is an interesting phone. Okay, my biggest downside of this phone is that it's no longer getting software updates. That'd be a big reason to not pick up a phone anymore. Some security updates is okay, but no major versions of Android. That kind of showcases kind of that this phone is towards the end of its life and it's already at its end of life. But I would probably say there are better phones out there for not that much more money. Case in point, the Galaxy S23 Plus. I think a Galaxy S23 Plus is definitely worth the money to go and spend to it. I think although that phone is a little bit annoying, like it's a little bit more expensive, it is still a phone that I'd recommend upgrading to. An S24 Plus, obviously, a Google Pixel 8, a Google Pixel 8 Pro, Google Pixel 7 Pro even. Those phones I'd probably recommend upgrading to because they're still supported with software versus the Galaxy S21 Plus. So from my opinion, that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.